Our brain is a magnificent organ that we all use in our everyday lives. We all use every part of our brain for the most of our daily activities, whether it is doing, speaking, or thinking. We have believed that we are using 100% of our brain 24/7. But however, some people believe that there is more to it, such as human beings only having access to 10% of our brain. This is believed to only be a myth, but is it actually true or false? The 10% statement may have been started with a misquote of Albert Einstein or the misinterpretation of the work of Pierre Flourens in the 1800s. It may have been William James, one of Harvard psychologists, who wrote in 1908, "We are making use of only a small part of our possible mental and physical resources." Another scientist named Carl Lashley went into further detail by removing large areas of the cerebral cortex in rats and found that these animals could still relearn specific tasks. We now know that the destruction of even small areas of the human brain can have devastating effects on behavior. That is one reason why neurosurgeons must be carefully map the brain before removing brain tissue during operations for epilepsy or brain tumors. They want to make sure that essential areas of the brain are not damaged. So what does it mean to use 10% of our brain?
We came to the conclusion that by using 10% of your brain means only 90% of it is being unused and is still untapped, and that every day we use 10% of our maximum potential.
Even if neurons are not firing action potentials, they may still be receiving signals from other neurons. Furthermore, from an evolutionary point of view, it is unlikely that larger brains would have developed if there was not an advantage. Certainly, there are several pathways that serve similar functions. Functional brain imaging studies show that all parts of the human brain function, even during sleep. The brain is active. The brain is still being used, and it is just in a different active state. Finally, the saying, "use it or lose it," seems to apply to the nervous system. During development, many new synapses are formed. In fact, some synapses are eliminated later on in development. This period of synaptic development and elimination goes on to fine-tune the wiring of the nervous system. Many studies show that if the input to a particular neural system is eliminated, the neurons in this system will not function properly. This has been shown quite dramatically in the visual system. Complete loss of vision will occur if visual information is prevented from stimulating the eyes and brain early in development. It seems reasonable to suggest that if 90% of the brain was not used, then many neural pathways would degenerate. However, this does not seem to be the case. On the other hand, the brains of young children are quite adaptable. The function of a damaged brain area in the young brain can be taken over by remaining brain tissue. Neurologist Barry Gordon describes the myth as false. Gordon has provided 7 parts of evidence revolving around the myth. Number 1. Studies of brain damage. If 90% of the brain is normally unused, then damage to these areas should not impair performance. Number 2. Brain scans have shown that no matter what one is doing, all brain areas are always active. Some areas are more active at any one time than others, but barring brain damage, there is no part of the brain that is not absolutely functioning. Number 3. The brain is enormously costly to the rest of the body. In terms of oxygen and nutrient consumption, it can require up to 20% of the body's energy, more than any other organ. Despite making up only 2% of the human body by weight, if 90% of it were unnecessary, there would be a large survival advantage to humans with smaller, more efficient brains. Number 4. Brain imaging, or neuroimaging. Technologies such as position emission tomography and functional magnetic resonance imaging follow the activity of the living brain to be monitored. They reveal that even during sleep, all parts of the brain show some level of activity. Number 5. Localization of function. Rather than acting as a single mass, the brain has distinct regions for different kinds of information processing. Decades of research have gone into the mapping functions into areas of the brain, and no functionless places have been found. Number 6. Microstructural analysis. In this single unit recording technique, researchers insert a tiny electrode into the brain to monitor the activity of a single cell. If 90% of walls were unused, then this technique would have revealed that purpose. Number 7. Synaptic pruning. Brain cells that are not used have a tendency to degenerate. Hence, if 90% of the brain were inactive, autopsy of normal adult brains would reveal large-scale degeneration. Out of all the information we have provided, it still seems like the 10% of our brain myth is still recognized as false. However, there are creatures in the world that have different functions based on their way of life and structure of their brain. For example, animals such as bats and dolphins have enough access to their brain to communicate a process known as echolocation. This allows the user to locate objects by the use of sound as it reflects off the object to them, sending them signals to their brain on its location. In dolphins, this special function works especially well underwater as a form of communication, Most of us outside the scientific realm know that dolphins do communicate with each other, and they're one of the most playful animals in the universe. We've never been exposed to the intricacies of the dolphin's brain. Dolphins have two hemispheres just like humans, however. Theirs are split into 4 lobes instead of 3. The 4th lobe in the dolphin's brain actually hosts all of the senses, whereas in humans the senses are split. Some believe that having all these senses in one lobe allow the dolphin to make immediate and often complicated judgments that are well beyond the scope of human ability. When studying the neocortex, which is the outside surface of the brain that is responsible for forming perceptions, memories, and thoughts, dolphins have more of a convolution than most of the intelligent humans. It is thought that dolphins may also be able to use the hemispheres of their brain separately, as they have separate blood supplies, which is something that is exclusively only to the dolphin. To add more weight to this supposition, dolphins are also able to move their eyes independently, which has led some researchers to suggest that the dolphin may actually be able to sleep with one side of its brain at a time. So in response, if this myth were true and able to crack and gain more access to our brain, eventually there is a possibility that humans as well may develop techniques such as echolocation or even further enhancement of regular body systems, such as a more powerful immune system, thinking process, and maybe even an increase in bone and muscular strength. Although parts of the brain have broadly understood functions, many mysteries remain about how the brain cells work together to produce complex behaviors and disorders. Perhaps the broadest, most mysterious question is how diverse regions of the brain collaborate to form conscious experiences. So far, there is no evidence that there is one site for consciousness, which leads experiments to believe that it is a truly collective narrow effort. Just remember that this is still considered a myth and that there is just not enough evidence to prove that human beings only use 10% of their brain. Thank you.